You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
Hello, welcome to episode 163 of the TV Obsessive Podcast. My name is Ryan Kirksey, writer, contributor for TVObsessive.com, and joined once again by Cameron Crane, the executive editor for the site. We are releasing this on July 3rd. This is a time that we can really think and reflect, Cameron, on how back we are with TV. We are so back. This is
Yeah.
just the right time to do it.
Yeah, indeed, man. We've got Silo season 3 here starting up. We've got Sugar in process, which I'm writing on. Ryan's writing on House of Dragon season 3, and there's a bunch of other stuff too. It's an exciting time. Glad to be back with Silo. We did talk about season 2 episode by episode on the podcast.
Hmm.
We want to go back to that. Regular listeners, I also want to note at one point I think I said that I wrote on the first 2 seasons. That was incorrect. I wrote on season 1. Ryan actually wrote on season 2. So apologies to Ryan in particular on that. I guess we talked about it on the podcast, so I guess just kind of scrambled
Yeah, we all
um,
did everything. It's good.
a little bit. But anyway, yeah, we're on the cusp of 4th of July weekend. You got any big plans?
No, well, a short little mini trip with some family to what's called the Hill Country in Texas. Just gonna go stay at a nice little hotel with a water park on it. It's just hopefully a relaxing 2 or 3 days. So we're recording this on Tuesday. So hopefully by the time this episode comes out, I'm kind of laying by the pool. That's the plan.
Well, yeah, I mean that sounds nice. Definitely bigger plans than I have. I mean, I would currently summarize my 4th of July plans as probably hiding inside from the onerous, terrible heat. You know what I mean? Like I'll hear some fireworks. I look out the
Yeah,
window, and
yeah,
as I recall, I think I can see the city's fireworks from my window. I think that's the case. So maybe
that's not bad.
I'll watch the fireworks from my window. But anyway, yeah, so we're switching it up a little bit here on this episode of the podcast where, as Ryan mentioned, we're recording early because he's taking a trip and so on and so forth, but this won't come out until July 3rd, because that's when the episode of Silo comes out. So normally we talk about what's been in the news and all of that, but we don't have that. We did that on the Bear episode that came out on Tuesday. So we're just going to kind of jump in on Silo here. I will say, make sure everyone's aware. Spoilers are going to be on the table here for everything in Silo up through season 3, episode 1, the TV series, but not the books. Although I don't know, maybe we should talk about that a little bit further as well, Ryan, because my understanding is you have started reading the book some.
I have read two of the three in the trilogy, and so yeah, sort of prepared to provide some thoughts on where things align and don't through this.
Okay, yeah, so I haven't now, but okay, so our established ground rules are we're focused on the show, so we don't want to spoil anything on the show. All right. So Ryan's not allowed to bring in anything from the books
Yeah,
that might spoil what's going to happen in the show. So I'll be
right.
careful about that. But I think it's fair to potentially note that things are different, or at least, like as I mentioned Ryan before we started recording, I read something the other day about something here that they're doing in the show that's not in the books. I don't think that spoils the show if it's like that. So we'll try to be
Yeah.
careful about it. Hopefully, you're all with us. Hopefully, you trust us on that front. Um, but that's the promise. Nothing being brought in from the source material that's going to spoil the show. Um, so anyway, but this is your spoiler warning for Silo seasons 1, seasons 2. This is going to be, the bulk of the whole podcast here today. Um, I don't know. Am I going to put music in here? I guess I'll put music in here. Let's briefly
We'll,
pause. It's like the regular
yes.
music for your spoiler warning.
We're ready to go. Let's do Silo as soon as we get back.
All right.
Okay, we're here to talk about Silo on Apple TV, Season 3, Episode 1, titled Who Are You? Written by Graham Yost and directed by Michael Dinner. In the 3 months that follow Juliet's return to the silo, her memory has been suppressed and she cannot recall the events before she came back. After Bernard's death, Sims and Camille have begun to run the silo with Sheriff Billings, and they've appointed Juliet as the new mayor, partly because of how popular she now is. Sims tells the people living in the silo things are going to be different. They're going to find out some of the truth about everything, and they're going to mend the pack to meet their needs. One night, with her dinner, someone passes Juliet a note asking if she's ready to know the truth about everything that happened to her. Sometime that isn't past, maybe even hundreds of years ago, freshman Congressman Daniel Keene gets a visit from his sister in D.C., and she is someone who flies fighter jets. She tells him the U.S. is going to retaliate against Iran for the dirty bomb that they detonated in the nation's capital, and he must get on the congressional committee about Iran that is run by Senator Thurman. While flying their mission over Iran, the group of fighter jets experienced a very weird anomaly that caused their planes to malfunction and crash, but Daniel's informed his sister survived and was rescued. He visits her in the hospital, but she does not know who he is. Um, I think I'm pretty safe in saying that we have set up the fact that this season is going to be two distinctly different timelines and two distinctly different stories, and
Yeah.
maybe they will merge and we'll figure out how they relate to one another. But we have gone back in time. We're thinking about the very, very end of season two and this flashback scene that we got. So we're going to get a lot of that. What are your thoughts on this structure so far?
Yeah, well, this was expected, and I've seen some things also, kind of extraneous to the narrative about this in terms of um how they're adapting the books, right? Where again, I haven't read them at all, and I know you've read some, but not all of them. But my understanding is like at this point in the books, it just would be like kind of a detour entirely into the past timeline. And that, well, it's like, of course, we're not going to do that with the TV show. We're not going to sideline Rebecca Ferguson for a whole season. So I kind of get it, but it does seem like it's putting them in their own territory a little bit with what they're doing, as I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is where we really have to think about maybe what I know and what I don't know. What I know is that book two largely ignores Juliet and the silo that we have been spending our time in. Very, very, very little to do with that. It largely focuses on the past, which we're going to get a significant amount of this season. So, having not read book three, I don't know if this timeline that we are now starting with Juliet and Sims and Paul and Camille and all of these people, um, is that what happens in book three? Or is this a sort of creative choice to run something long parallel so that we don't lose Rebecca Ferguson for a whole season, as you said?
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. I guess I don't know either, and we'll just leave it at that. We don't know. We don't know. We can't spoil it for you because we don't know.
We don't
Um,
know.
but yeah, maybe Ryan does know some stuff about what's happening in the Daniel Keene timeline, and don't spoil it. What do you think about? I mean, let's start there though, and then we'll return to Juliet. I guess is what I want to do. Well, I structured my recap article oppositely, which you can also go find on
Mm,
TVObscast.com if you're interested in reading something. But let's start with the Keen stuff. Let's start with the stuff in the past, I guess, here. Because the first question I wanted to ask for you is just like, how's it working for you on the level of a television viewer, on the level of entertainment, even if you like?
yeah, I'm going to try to answer this. This is where, in some ways, I will regret having read ahead because I want to experience sort of what could happen and what might happen for the first time with a lens of what they're going to show me on this screen. And so I am very excited. I think I messaged about what's ahead. And I think that they have done a really good job introducing sort of planting the seeds of what could happen in this season. I think that all along we've wanted to know why do these silos exist? What's the history? What's the reason? Clearly, I think this is where we're going with this timeline.
Yeah.
So far, I think that it's set the stage for that in an appropriate and in a largely functional way that can launch us a lot of different ways from where we are now.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that. And like, okay, so definitely I am intrigued about all of this stuff in terms of how it fits into the overall story
Yeah.
and how it, I was going to say might, but almost has to. Like the promise here is that we're going to get some answers about what's going on and what led to the creation of the silos. Like why, there's no other reason you would be doing this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, And with what we've gotten so far, you could speculate a little bit or whatever. I don't know how much we'll even get into that or how much I have to say about that. I mean, some whatever's going on with Iran, And then, whatever's going on with Charlotte and her fellow pilots getting attacked by a cloud of black goo or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that she lost her memory. Okay, this is sort of interesting. Maybe that
Yes.
does resonate a little bit with the storyline in the Salad with Juliet, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. So it's like, okay, but what I'm trying to ask is like, I definitely care at that plot level.
Hmm.
I guess I'll just speak for myself first and let you respond. I'm not sure how I feel still to this point about the character of Daniel Keene,
Yeah.
about his sister Charlotte,
Yep.
or the other characters we met, like Senator, I think it's Thurman, um,
Thurman, I think. Yeah.
who is another thing I noticed. I think she's a man in the book and it's a woman in the show. I think that's a difference, but like who cares? I
Yes.
don't think that's a spoiler, or like whatever.
Yeah. That
Yeah,
that is that is absolutely correct. There are a lot of dynamics there that are different, but yes, it is a man in the book.
so yeah, whatever. And again, it's like I'm intrigued in all of this on a plot level, but I don't know. And I guess it lands on Daniel Keene in particular because like, he's the protagonist here.
Hmm.
And I'm still not sure how much I care about him. I'm still not sure how much invested I am. What about you?
Yeah, I think that they have a lot of work to do here. We have spent so much time with Juliet, with Knox, with that whole team, with even with Sims, and how you feel about him. We have developed these long arcs with them, and I feel much more connected to that group and their story right now than I do with Daniel, with his sister. They had a very, I don't know. I don't have a sister, so I can't necessarily speak to this, but I don't know, they just see chemistry when they were on screen together. And so I just feel like that group of people, um, there's going to be a temptation, I think, for them to go real fast to get to a certain point. And I hope they really sort of build some things up with them in terms of story and sort of in terms of chemistry with all of them.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, generally, this show does not go fast.
Right.
So, and if it does go fast, I might be just fine with that. But I kind of expect that it won't. I just hope that, presuming that it is kind of a slow pacing,
Mm,
which is what I would expect from the show, that I start feeling a bit more invested in that narrative on its own terms, not just in terms of how it answers questions in our original
yeah.
narrative, And I'm not sure if I will, because it does already feel like it's going a bit fast. I mean, by the end of this first episode, you've got Charlotte in the hospital and she doesn't remember who Daniel is. Um,
Hmm.
that sucks. I also don't have a sister. I do have a brother, but I mean, like, it certainly would suck if my brother was like, "Who are you?" But
Yeah.
beyond that, which I'm saying in an almost generalized sort of way, I don't really care about Charlotte. I don't know her.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
there was this terrible thing has happened to her, but we have, I mean, what, 5 minutes of screen time with her beforehand, where she's just sort of this clandestine operative trying to figure something out. So I mean, just not that invested in what has happened, or much more invested in what was that than what happened to her.
Yeah, and I mean, even not trying to be mean or anything. The acting performance is fine and all of that, but like if anything, that scene
Yeah,
on the bench, I found her character to be like mildly annoying.
yeah,
Like if I had any reaction at all, it was more like I'm not sure I like her. She's kind of annoying. Then like anything that got
hmm,
me invested in her as a person, and
yeah,
so it goes, I guess. But curious to see how that plays out and how some of these dynamics are, and hopefully I do start feeling a bit more invested in them on their own terms. But I was curious where you were at with that after one episode as a TV show, because it's one of those things where
yeah,
I can well imagine it working better in a book. You know what I mean?
yeah. We do get a lot of character exploration in the book. A lot more inner monologue and a lot more about the relationships that these people have had before the time we pick up with them in the show. And so yeah, there's some more depth there that we're just, for lack of time and lack of episodes, we're just probably not going to get.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully we get adequate depth. I don't know. I was thinking
Yeah,
more about,
yeah.
I guess, how like when it's a TV show or if it were a film, so much hangs on the actor, so much hangs on the
Hmm.
performance. Whereas with a book, if it's well written, you can introduce a new character, and it's like, okay, we wrote that character well, now I care about the character. But here, it's also that level of is the acting working or something like that?
Yeah. So we have a lot. Is there anything else you would think we should touch on in terms of the past timeline? Should we move more to what's going on with Juliet? I don't know that we have a lot more detail in the past that we need to decipher. There's sort of some things that we know. We know about the dirty bomb. We know about this raid that's happened over Iran. If we just have to wait and see there. Do you think there are other things we should cover?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there was a ton, really. I mean,
Yeah,
we could get into, I have to say, I found myself thinking a little bit about the fact that they make the antagonist Iran here, given real world events. And were there any
yeah,
conversation? I mean, you couldn't change it. I guess there was already something in season two anyway. It wouldn't be worth, anyway, we don't need to go down that path. Maybe worth noting that I guess Charlotte's mission is like towards some secret facility as opposed to the main thing that the news stories
yeah.
are about. I did notice on the screen that they've called it Operation Righteous Vengeance, which
Right. Just yeah.
I might be tempted to say was implausible, but no, yeah, not really. If you look at the world, if you look at our contemporary politics and all of that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm look. I'll just sort of point to two questions, then we can jump back to Silo 18. Um, One is, I guess, just the broad scale one of like, all right, well, it's one thing that there's a conflict between the U.S. and Iran,
Hmm.
but how is that going to lead to the silos?
Yep.
And it's like
Yep.
I can hardly even speculate on how to connect those dots. The other thing that
Yep.
stuck in my craw a little bit that I want a payoff for is the Pez dispenser.
Mm.
And I'm worried that I'm not going to get one. Like it might just be this little thing that's in there, but there is something about that. Like, why? Charlie even asked him, like, why did you give her a Pez dispenser? He's like, I thought it was funny. Like, okay, so is that the whole explanation? But
Yeah.
beyond that, there's the question of, well, how did the Pez dispenser get into the silo? So I do feel like that is kind of an item that the show's asking us to pay attention to, if nothing else.
Yeah. I would say, in response to your questions, I'll start with number two. I am also very interested in that. And is it important? And does it matter? And why is it important? If and how and when that Pez dispenser gets into the silo, we were introduced to it at the end of, introduced to the end of season two, reference the beginning of season three. So what does that mean? And I'm very curious to see what happens there. To your first question, that is the indispensably fundamental question of the season, I think, that
Yeah.
we'll probably look at.
Yeah, I'm like, that's kind of what the season's about in terms of that timeline. So I don't expect an immediate answer. If I'm going to speculate on the second one with the Pest Dispenser, and again, right, if you know anything here, don't give it away. But I don't. I haven't read anything. Um, if I were to speculate, the best I could come up with was he gives the Pest Dispenser to Helen, the reporter, and that they end up creating the silos and forcing people into them against their will, and one of them is Helen, who has that with her or something like that.
Mm,
Like, oh, you can't give away maybe it's totally secret that they're putting people in the silos or something like that, and she's threatening to give it away or something. I don't know. That's the best I can come up with at the moment, and who knows if that's right or what. But let's turn to the Silo 18. We mentioned briefly we got Juliet's memory loss. That does resonate a little bit with Charlotte's memory loss, at least
yeah,
at some level. I did find myself wondering, like, do you think that there's any chance that it's the same stuff? I mean, we in previous seasons we've had some mention of the possibility of memory suppressing drugs in the water and stuff like this, and so I'm
yeah,
kind of okay with this being some payoff for that. But I did think it was curious that in the past timeline, you also had memory loss. So I don't know. Do you think it's the same stuff, or just kind of other thoughts about the amnesia trope? If we start there,
yeah. I would just say my thoughts were it was too much to be coincidental.
yeah,
I think that's clear. I think that we are. Since we're dealing so much with Juliet's memory loss or memory suppression, and the idea that she's trying to find or will she find the truth, and now we're dealing with someone else in the current time, the past timeline that is now dealing with memory loss. I think that we are going to again. I don't know actually the answer to this question, but I think we're going to find out that these are related somehow in some way. that something that has begun long ago that she's now experiencing is now continuing or has been allowed to continue in the current silo.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. We need more information, right? But
Yeah.
like because it's odd too because it seems like from watching that scene, I feel like all the other pilots died, or like all their other planes went down, or
That's
like
what it seemed like.
burst into
Yeah.
flames. And even the last we see of Charlotte, it's like everything's cracking, and
Right.
it seems like she should die. But not only does she not die, but I think there's even something in there in the dialogue indicating that she's physically fine. She's just mentally not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all very, it's all very
I-
curious, very curious.
yeah. I mean, again, I'm going to say just honestly, I don't know because this is a scene that is not in the books. This is something that is created for this episode of television. And so what this is, what has happened, and how it affects her mind, but perhaps not her body. I mean, I just think it's a complete mystery. It's an interesting mystery, and if it ties to the silos, that will make it even more intriguing. But it is just a mystery.
Yeah. So, all right. I put in my recap. I usually would like groan at the kind of amnesia trope. I'm largely willing to
Yeah,
I'm largely willing to forgive it here, I guess, because there have been those previous seeds about the idea of memory suppressing drugs, and it does make
yeah,
some sense in terms of what they're doing here. With the idea being that, well, Juliet survived the fire because, in part,
mm,
she was wearing a firefighter suit. She wasn't wearing a quote normal suit. That makes some sense.
right,
And now they've been giving her these memory suppressing drugs because I guess the algorithm cares most about making sure that no one knows about other silos. I mean, I almost hesitate to say a computer cares about things, but I think it says it's worried in this episode. So
mm.
there's no avoiding
So
the.
let me clarify what you ask you this question. I think it's important that I clarify this for myself. In your mind, or in your opinion, who is giving her the memory suppression drug? Who is doing this to her? Who knows about it and who does not?
In my mind, my interpretation is who's giving her the drugs would be Camille. And I guess whoever that woman was in her
Hmm?
apartment who's kind of like a whatever nurse or maid or assistant or whatever. But I'm not sure that she even knows what she's doing. You know what I mean? The one who says
Yeah.
time for your
Yeah.
vitamins, like she might even think they're vitamins, whatever, you know.
Right.
I basically think it's just Camille and the algorithm. I don't even think Sims knows personally.
Okay. That was my question that I'm sort of on the fence of. Does Sims know this? And really, it's a larger question about Sims' true intentions here, his true intentions to manipulate Juliet to cause her to forget, to see no that she's getting this memory suppression, or is it just Camille sort of going behind all of this and under the will of the algorithm?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the latter. Now, Sims could know. I don't know for sure, but recall the scene from the season two finale. It's very brief in there where after Bernard's like, all right, fine, Sims, you can be my shadow, you know, because all hope is lost. Who cares? Um,
Right.
and Sim pays a brief visit to Lucas. I don't know where Lucas is. Maybe we talk about that more in a moment. That's one question I have. Where's Lucas? But then Sims goes to the algorithm, and if you recall, the algorithm says, "You and your son leave. I'm only talking to Camille." So poor Sims, who I don't like him really. I don't tell you, but
Yeah.
I do have to say, poor guy. Insofar as like it's like he spent his whole life wanting to be Bernard's shadow. He finally gets to be the shadow, and then he finally gets to the algorithm. The algorithm's like, "Go away. I'm only talking to your wife."
Yeah.
Um, but so my interpretation is that that's holding, right? And then indeed that's what we see here in the season three premiere. We see Camille talking to the algorithm alone.
Hmm.
And so, you know, it's possible that Sims knows what they're doing in terms of giving Juliet the memory suppressing drugs. I think that's possible. But
Yeah.
I'm leaning in the direction of thinking that he doesn't, I guess, because of the scene between him and Juliet in this episode where he says like, I hope you get your memory back and all of that. That felt
Yeah.
genuine to me. I don't know.
I, I I think you're right, and I think that's where I've landed. I had I did rewatch the finale. I actually forgotten about that Sim scene, but yeah, knowing that he got kicked out of the room essentially, yeah, there's some lot that's been concocted here that Camille is running, and she may be the person running this without any assistance from anyone else. But yeah, I think that's where I've landed.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, so Camille's in charge, but I think Camille's not really in charge because the algorithm's in charge. And in the background of that is the threat of the safeguard procedure or protocol, or whatever the right
Hmm.
term is, the safeguard, which we were learned about in season two, which I take it Lucas thought was going to happen. And
Yeah.
that's relatively clear. I revisited some of that episode as well to refresh my memory. In particular, looking for that Camille scene, but the stuff around it. That's one of the things that's around it, where Lucas basically tells him like, doesn't that nothing matters anymore anyway, and that's what he told Bernard.
Yeah.
Juliet apparently learned in the other silo, in silo 17, how to turn off the safeguard. Um, but it seems like all of this kind of cover up and obfuscation at this point is in service of blaming everything on Bernard. Everything.
Yep.
Anything you want to
Yep.
blame anyone for, we're going to blame it on Bernard.
Yep.
And setting up Juliet as a puppet mayor, because of course she's
Hmm.
immensely popular and all that. But we wiped her
Correct.
memory, so she's not a threat. Um, Although the algorithm is worried about the way that she's had the stream and now thinks she needs to do something and she can't remember what. So, the algorithm says double the dosage of her memory suppressors or whatever. Um, but all of this puts us in something of a pickle. And only like with regard to what I think we want to happen, because like we want Juliet to get her memory back,
Yep.
and so on and so forth, right? But in a straightforward sense, my interpretation and what we've seen at least is if she were to just simply get her memory back and start trying to do things, then the algorithm would be like, oh, time to kill everyone. You know what I mean? So like she has to somehow regain her memory and disable the safeguard procedure without the algorithm knowing about it, but she's got Camille breathing down her neck all the time.
Yeah, and so that's sort of where I think I am as well. That Camille slash the algorithm is going to let this Sims, Billings, Juliet triumvirate sort of do their thing and move forward and explore what the truth is and amend the pact to a certain point, at which point the algorithm's not comfortable with it, then it will intervene in some way, somehow.
Yeah, like I meaningfully think the whole thing with the council is just kind of a charade. I mean, like it
Yeah.
feels nice and democratic, like you're gonna have this council with the different department heads. That's cool. And maybe for some things it'll even function in a way that feels good. But like when it comes down to it, no, you don't have any power, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's more for show than anything. Kind of curious that they are exploring making some tweaks to the pact.
Yes. Yeah.
Although I guess if I'm remembering correctly, correct me if I'm wrong here, or let me know if you remember the same thing or what. The pact was written by the what's his name guy whose code Lucas is decoding, right? Like
Oh yeah.
after the Salvador or whatever his name was. So like the pact
Hmm.
hasn't been there since the very beginning of the silo. It only occurred after that rebellion when they instituted all these rules, like you can't remember the history of previous rebellions or whatever. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
Remember there? Yeah.
You,
Um,
I think you have that right. I need to just to stay mute on some of that stuff, but you generally have that right. Yes.
all right. So that makes it less immutable than, we may have been thinking. But then we've also been introduced to the idea of the order, and that is more foundational, I think. And so it's noteworthy, I think, to point out that the algorithm says something to Camille like, we're beyond the order now, or whatever. So like, what, we just like
Right.
thrown out all the rules? Um,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on here.
Yeah. There is sort of a very hierarchical discussion that needs to be had as we're like, yeah, what is the not the governing body, but the governing authority, the governing law, the thing that we are actually pointing towards when things go wrong, things go out of bounds of where the algorithm wants it to go. So we do have to start paying attention to, yeah, what trumps what, I guess, when we get down to it.
So yeah, I mean, do we interpret it like this, that the order is largely a set of instructions about what to do when things start going wrong, but things went bad enough that it no longer has any guidance. So really, it's just
Hmm.
like the safeguard should have been initiated, except for the fact that this anomalous event happened at just the right moment where Juliet returned to stop the rebellion. And so now the algorithm's trying to save the silo, but it's kind of off script or something like that.
Yeah, I think we have to give ourselves latitude to think that the order might even be bigger than that, or have uh, more meaning or more, um, what's the right word? Um, there is more that it can do than just answer those questions.
Yeah, something like that. So I don't know. I mean, it's another one of those situations where Silo does a really good job of putting me in a bind, or like a double bind in terms of how I'm even thinking it through, because I
Yeah,
want to, I
yeah.
want to sort of like parse things and bring in my philosophy background or whatever. And it's like, what would Kant say about this? Well, it's like, I don't even know because it's pretty tough to say, like, I mean, on the one hand, all of the secrecy and everything, okay, well, you can make an moral objection pretty straightforwardly. You can also um, make the argument that it's morally wrong to give someone memory suppressing drugs, particularly against their will,
Hmm.
pretty straightforwardly. But with the setup being that, otherwise, um, some safeguard would be initiated that would kill everyone and we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Meh. Or maybe we can do something about it because that was something we got from season one. But we can't, we have to secretly do something about it. And, I mean, it's just, it puts you in that kind of bind in terms of who you're rooting for, what you want to see happen, I guess, in a certain way. At least in particular with Bernard, I kept feeling like, okay, well, I kind of feel like what he's doing is at least understandable, even if it's wrong from, a 10,000-foot view within the situation, it's harder to argue that it's wrong, and I feel like now we're in a similar boat with Camille, I guess, is the new Bernard figure.
Exactly. As someone that has been told that they are informed, told that they have the information, that they are the important, arbiter or harbinger of things to come, but they still, I mean, I think we just have to assume they just don't know nearly everything or nearly everything that others know, or the algorithm knows, or the enemy knows, or however you want to define it. They just, are completely in the dark on a lot of those things.
Right. I mean, I guess I'm presuming that from Camille's perspective, it's like the algorithm's telling her basically either make sure that Juliet doesn't regain her memory or I'm going to kill everyone. Or, the safeguard
Yeah.
is going to,
Yeah.
you have to imagine the algorithm would be the kind of asshole who would be like, well, it's not me, man. It's like, I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just a computer program. Yeah.
yeah, like, it's like, so it's like I'm God, but, if push comes to shove, my hands are tied. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, that's right.
So that's what I'm imagining. So I'm curious to see how this will go. A couple other things to hit on here in terms of what we're seeing in the silo. We don't see Martha in this episode. She would be my guess for who sent the message to Juliet, but it could be someone else. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually had not clocked yet that we had not seen Martha. We do get some glimpses of most others, but I guess Martha and Lucas Kyle are the two that we know are around, but we have not seen the other. Martha seems like a good bet to have sent a note about people wanting to know the truth.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely other possibilities, but I
Yeah,
presume she's still in the season. I hope so.
I would assume.
Lucas is more, I mean, Lucas is a fugitive, I guess, right?
Yeah,
We're told that pretty explicitly, him and Kennedy, Patrick Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Um,
Yeah,
but different sorts, right? It at least kind of seems like Patrick Kennedy is still committed to the idea of the rebellion And behind this group they refer to as the Outsiders, who hang that banner and apparently have stolen a helmet and all of that, which would
Hmm.
track for me, so I'm willing to buy it. But they don't know where he is. He's hiding somewhere.
Yeah.
Lucas is, I guess, also presumably probably hiding somewhere, but that does feel a little bit weirder to me. It makes me almost wonder if he's not and they've actually already killed him or something. I don't know. What do you think?
I cannot think or presume that they have killed Lucas at this point. He last time we saw him, he was with his mother in her apartment when they confronted Sims. I think yeah, he's just on the run or in hiding somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm wondering about there is like what would have made him go on the run? Because yeah, the last time we saw him, it was he's with his mother, and like he thinks that the safeguard's going to be initiated and they're just all going to die. You know what I mean? So it seems like the last time we saw him, he was in the headspace of I'm going to spend my final moments with my mother, and so
Yeah,
okay, well then what? Then what happened? You know what I mean? So if he's hiding somewhere, how do we even get there? Um, Presumably, we'll circle around to that at some point, and I look forward to it.
yeah.
Bernard, on the other hand, I guess his story is over, and it's a big shame that I'm going to miss Tim Robbins. I do wonder
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there's a little bit of space for them to possibly work in some like flashback scenes that involve Tim Robbins, but I don't know if they will or not. But I do want to talk about what we see in this episode because functionally, like Sims lies to Juliet about Bernard and says he dies in the fire that we saw at the end of season two in the airlock. But then we
Right.
see he didn't actually. He survived until he was back into the silo, and then Sims killed him. Pretty clearly, I think. I don't think there's much ambiguity there, right? Wrapping his face in plastic, and you
Yeah.
put that together with everything else we've seen about that body being transported to the incinerator. So Bernard's dead, yes?
Yeah, I think that is indisputable. We would only see him in some kind of flashback moment. Sims wants to whatever he sees as the progressive movement ahead. It can't happen with Bernard. So yes, he is taking care of that problem and burned it into oblivion.
Right. And okay, and yeah, and part of the plan is you blame it on Bernard.
Yeah,
And why did, if the rebels had some good points, it was because yeah, Bernard was a tyrant who went off book and so on, and we're going to
that's
bring
right.
things
That's
back to
right.
the law. Blame everything on Bernard, blame it on the dead guy, and I think that could function in theory. And I do wonder. This would be the minimal space for possible flashbacks, and I kind of hope for them in part because I want to see more of Tim Robbins as Bernard.
Yeah.
But it would have to be in that small space of time where like almost between what we saw at the end of season two and when they get back into the silo and Bernard is injured and then taken
Yes.
and ultimately killed. Um, and so I don't know, but I am wondering because Juliet has that dream and she thinks that there's something that she needs to do. Now, with the
Hmm.
information we have, all right, seems pretty obvious to me what she might be thinking of, right? Let them know at the other silo. There are people in the other silo, um, about the safeguard protocol. We want to turn that off or whatever. And like, no, it's not safe outside. I don't know if that's part of it or not. She's already communicated that message a bit, and maybe she understands that she has. I don't know. But is there something further? Because she wants to talk to Bernard, and of course she can't because he's dead. But is there something further we haven't
Yeah.
seen yet that Bernard told her or something like that? I don't know. It's a possibility, but I'm not sure I'm not sure there even will be or needs to be, but maybe there is.
Yeah, that would be interesting to note if in that moment before her memory is suppressed and before they discover that Bernard is alive, was there some sort of conversation, some connection, something happened that she's able to uncover or remember, and what was passed on that she could, eventually comes back to her whenever the truth starts spinning again.
Yeah, because what does he say in the end of season two? It's either what I'm about to say or I've got it backwards, and I may have to double check when we're done, unless you remember for sure. He
No.
says something like, I know who, but I don't know why. Or does he say, I know
Yeah.
why, but I don't know who?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't remember. That's one of those.
Anyway, whichever one it is, maybe there's some space in there where he tells her something,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that could be
That's
something to
right.
return to. Maybe, but other than that, I think Tim Robbins is functionally gone from the show.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I enjoyed him throughout, even if his character was, a mixed bag, at least Bernard. Um, let's see. I mean, have we? have we covered it? We kind of jumped around a bit. I know. Anything else we need to talk about here?
I think that we have covered all that I wanted to.
All right, so this is where it leaves us. Juliet did return the soup bowl upside down,
Hmm.
indicating that she wants to know. We don't know who is behind that message for sure. I guess Martha, again, it could be someone else, possibly. Presumably, we'll follow up with that as we move forward. But there's, definite difficulty here insofar as I don't know. I really don't know how they're going to get out of this situation that they set up. So
Yeah.
hopefully they do a good job and it feels like it works in terms of because Camille just seems like down her throat, like
Yeah.
Juliet's just
Yeah. Never
constant
going,
surveillance
never ever going to yeah, let her out of her sights, as it were.
and feeding her the memory suppressing drugs, So how
Yep.
can we get to where she gets her memory back and then it's also like enough of a secret to get away with it and all of that? And I presume that's the kind of needle they're going to try to thread here. So
Hmm.
hopefully it works. Regardless, we'll leave it there for this week. Thanks as always for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. If so, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you are on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the thumbs up, and so on. Greatly appreciate it. Check out TVObscessive.com. You can find Brickmark on all sorts of TV shows. I am writing recaps of Silo season 3. And you can also find recaps there of the previous seasons if you want to go back and refresh your memory on things. As for the podcast, we'll be back with you next week talking about episode 2 of Silo season 3.
Looking forward to that. We will see you then.